On the 26th of July 1973, martial arts legend Bruce Lee and producer Raymond Chow were discussing the script of their new film, Game of Death. Later that evening, Lee complained of a headache and Chow left to a dinner reservation. Lee took a single pill, the painkiller Equagesic, and went to bed. It was a sleep that he would never wake from. Only 3 films into a blockbusting film career and 6 days before his Hollywood debut, Bruce Lee was pronounced dead, aged just 32. Leading British forensic scientist Donald Tier was flown to Hong Kong to complete the autopsy. He found that something had caused Lee's brain to swell by 13%, and concluded that Lee had died by misadventure. The painkiller Equagesic was the only substance found in his body. Therefore, Donald Tier concluded that Lee's brain swelling and subsequent death must have been caused by an allergic reaction to the painkiller's compounds. But this ruling proved to be controversial. Reportedly, Bruce Lee's own private doctor, Donald Langford, publicly refuted this conclusion, stating nobody dies from 1 tablet of Equagesic. An unsatisfying coroner's report fueled rumours and doubt as to how it was possible for the fittest man alive to die from an everyday painkiller. Many were left to question, was Bruce Lee murdered? Conspiracy theorists on the site Exavient Haze believe the most likely suspect to have orchestrated Bruce Lee's murder was producer Raymond Chow. He co-owned Concord Production with Bruce Lee, which was a subset of Chow's already existing Golden Harvest production company. Their working relationship was often strained, and rumours circulated that Lee often had temper tantrums on set. In the months before his death, Lee had even halted filming A Game of Death in order to star in Concord Productions' Enter the Dragon, which was co-produced with Warner Brothers. With such a division in Lee's priorities, could it be possible that Chow had killed his biggest star, Bruce Lee, to prevent him from swapping Hong Kong for Hollywood? Suspicion fell on Chow when it was revealed that just 2 months earlier Bruce Lee suddenly collapsed, vomiting and falling into a seizure. Members of the crew ran and informed Chow that Lee was unconscious, but instead of calling an ambulance, Chow first rang his own doctor. When Lee was finally administered to hospital, a neurosurgeon found that Lee's brain was swollen, the same symptoms he displayed the day he died. When Lee died, it was Chow once again who chose not to call an ambulance, instead trying to revive Lee himself. Could it be possible that Chow poisoned Lee? With Lee dead, Chow was able to procure Lee's remaining half of Concord Productions and fully own the rights to the few films that immortalized the martial arts legend. With a newly created insatiable appetite for Bruce Lee films, his untimely death created a new market which Chow exploited, distributing Lee's films for the first time to an international market. Chow proved he didn't even need Lee alive to create films with the martial arts icon, when 5 years later he released Bruce Lee's final film attempt, ironically titled Game of Death, using only 11 minutes of footage of Bruce Lee and filling in the rest of the film with lookalikes, and even real footage of Lee's funeral. With no competition from Hollywood, Chow's production company Golden Harvest was able to dominate Hong Kong box office sales for the next 2 decades. But another suspected group in Bruce Lee's murder is the centuries-old criminal gang, the Chinese Triads. It was rumoured that the Triads had close ties with the entertainment industry, and when Bruce Lee refused to pay gang members for their protection services, the Triads instead took an even higher offer to become his assassins. The Mandarin film industry was under threat from Bruce Lee's popularity and dominance. Lee was single-handedly revolutionizing the action genre, and the studios that couldn't afford him risked making a loss. It is therefore speculated that executives in the Mandarin film industry, possibly with the help of Raymond Chow, paid the Triads to poison Bruce Lee. But even before Bruce Lee's glittering film career, he had made enemies within the martial arts community, when he opened his own martial arts school in America, accepting students from all ethnicities. Lee was accused of dishonoring ancient Chinese secrets by sharing them with foreigners. He was challenged to a fight by martial arts master Wong Jack Man, and if Lee lost, he was to be forbidden from teaching Americans Chinese martial arts. Although Lee won the match, his further exposure of martial arts to a mass audience continued to anger many. A 1985 article in the martial arts magazine Black Belt theorized that Lee's sudden death may have been the result of a delayed reaction to dim mak, known as the touch of death. This is a martial arts technique that attacks pressure points leading to the delayed death of an opponent. The Black Belt article argues that Lee's popularizing of martial arts angered an unknown kung fu master who months before Lee's death administered the unsuspected attack. However, despite the mythology surrounding the dim mak, there is no proof that this technique actually exists. From conspiracy theorists to scientists dissatisfied with the coroner's report, new theories constantly arise concerning what caused Lee's death. As recently as 2006, an American doctor proposed that Bruce Lee suffered from an epileptic condition, first recognized more than 20 years after his death. The condition, known as SUDEP, or sudden unexpected death in epilepsy, accounts for 5 to 30% of deaths in patients with epilepsy, and involves a seizure which stops the heart or lungs. It is most common in men aged 20 to 40 and can be brought on by lack of sleep and stress. But whether Bruce Lee died of epilepsy or murder, his shocking death did not remove from his brief but shining film career. To this day he is admired for his strength, his skills and his philosophy, and for being a legend who bridged the gap between East and West. 2 years after the Columbine shooting, in which 2 teenage boys shot dead 12 students and a teacher, relatives of the victims filed a lawsuit against 25 companies seeking $5 billion in damages. The companies were all game developers and publishers, and they stood accused of creating the conditions that made the massacre possible. There have been many accusations that violent video games cause aggressive and even murderous behavior since the genre began. In the case of the Columbine massacre, it was classic